There's a lot that polling can do. It can depress a vote. It can excite a vote. It could make a vote complacent. Also, it could raise money, right? I mean, this is what we hear a lot. It's just why I don't like taking a lot of private candidate work. I never did. And if I believe in somebody, I'll work for them. But for the most part, you're hired as a pollster and they want something they can show donors, and that's just not what I do. That's not the business I want to be in. And of course, I get it. There are some people, it's always part of the game, but there are those who take that work on just to do that, to provide that service to a client. Also, media, they used to be the safeguard against the misuse of polling as a weapon of information war. And unfortunately, now I think it's very clear big media has become one of those, one of those abusers, and they're the repeat offenders of it. And it's sad because the United States is supposed to be the gold standard of democracy, and yet we're no better than Brazil or some of these other Latin America. Polling has been weaponized for a long time. There's actually a documentary on Netflix playing about it right now. It's pretty interesting, actually, if people want to see it. But I wish I could tell you otherwise, but I can't, because it is true. And the most supposed credible news outlets out there are the very ones that are doing this time and time again. But how do I guard against it? I'm competitive. Here's the truth. I would love to say, give this speech about how I have, all these ethical boundaries, and that's true. But what really this comes down to is that I'm competitive and I want to be right. I don't like being second best. I don't like being third best. I don't like being wrong. And I think somewhere along the way, most pollsters were like that. And somewhere along the way they lost it. They became blinded by ideology and, very much what I was saying earlier, which is that so many of them no longer even understand the people that they're trying to learn about. They're trying to gauge. And polling is essentially attempting to predict human behavior. It's very much almost a behavioral social science. How could you do that if you don't know that much about the subject, right? And maybe even dislike them. And that's the truth. Most people in my field dislike them. So they feel that it's just, not that big of a deal to weaponize their work against those people. And I wish I had a less dire outlook, to project to you about the industry, but I think we have really, really serious problems, ethical and methodologically. And until people get back to the basics and the drawing board, maybe even separate some of these relationships that are sadly really intertwined with each other, they're almost incestuous between media and candidates and the pollster until that has better boundaries or there's accountability, like we're seeing RCP do, then I don't think it's going to change. Hopefully, we're moving in that direction, but we'll see.
Well, but it's kind of a funny question, right? Because, well, I guess it comes down to...
It's a sad one.
It is, but it comes down to incentive structures, right? If you're incentivized to give the wrong information, then you'll keep giving the wrong information. If you're incentivized, perhaps like you are, to give the right information, so you have people like me actually following you and wanting to know what you think, as you know in your text messages, perhaps too often, that is also an incentive. And we all kind of believe that would be the incentive for everybody, but it doesn't seem to be anymore.
It's not. There's a lot of money in it. And I don't often, like to just broadcast people out there to put them up to shame them. But you really could see this dynamic at work with the release of the New York Times polling, which was very different. He made no bones about the fact that the way he polls is much more expensive, even though he didn't really particularly care about how poorly his track record is. So to him, it's more about prestige, and he knows what the New York Times wants him to find, right? Let's be honest. He knows what the New York Times wants. They don't want to publish a poll that says Democrats are going to lose all 4 of these Senate seats. They don't want to do that. So there's also no incentive because there's no good incentive because there's no fear of repercussion at all. He's never going to lose his job, Yan. Never. I mean, the New York Times is not going to fire him because he had Hillary Clinton winning the state of North Carolina by 7, Biden winning the state of North Carolina by 6. Across the board, I could go on and on and on. He has no punishment. So, unfortunately, the American Association of Public Opinion Research, they're supposed to be somewhat of a watchdog. There have been good, honest pollsters who have called on them to do something, come up with a censure program or system of some kind that goes after people that obviously are doing this on purpose year after year, and they have done nothing. Because the truth is, they're dominated by leftists too. So they don't have any incentive to I don't know what the proper words, punish, but to highlight and showcase those who repeatedly overestimate the support of one party over another year after year. And it's a shame. It's all because George Gallup loved this work. He is obviously very much a founder and a pioneer of American public opinion research, and I believed in what I still do. Believe what George Gallup believed, which is that public polling serves a really important function in any self-governing society. And if you cannot rely on them for elections because they're constantly putting out either garbage or propaganda, intentional garbage, then what does that has serious implications for the rest of what polling means to a democracy. So congressmen who are thinking about passing a bill, how do they know whether their constituents truly support the bill or not, right? They're looking at some public polling. But believe me, folks, if the polling on elections is wrong, the polling on how people feel about certain issues, policy standpoints, that's wrong too. If you can't trust a pollster to get the horse race right at the end of the day on Tuesday, right, then you can't trust that any of the other work that they're doing is accurate either. And so it's sad because it takes away a tool from representatives in what is supposed to be a representative government.